welcome to Trade of Thought. I am your host, Akanksha Anil, and today we're going to discuss something that we've all been a part of. As we know of the Ice Age, the era of industrialization, now we are all in the digital age. And who better to understand digitalization than from someone who's seen it all unfurl firsthand? Mr. Niranjan Gidwani has over 41 years of experience and accomplishments in hardcore senior management with strong exposure to handling and developing international businesses. Having an experience of working across sectors and countries, he has a deep understanding of the market and has seen its digital transformation firsthand. He is the former CEO of Eros Group Dubai, is currently engaged as an independent consultant director and advisor to the boards. He is also a member of the UAE Super Brands Council and recently made the board member of Society of Sustainability and Green Materials. Sir, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in Eros, since that is the place that you worked for the longest?
Okay. So I came into Eros at the end of 2006, Akanksha. I had moved from Singapore. I was working with the Singaporean group for a short time here, and then I got into Eros. At that stage, and I must confess that Eros has always been, today it must be a 54-year-old group. Eros has always been a company which has made money, it has been profitable. When I joined, it was in its 38th year of operation. And when I joined them in the 38th year, I think the objective was that we convert Eros from a company which was a trading company, which was handling various distribution brands and making money, to a brand which was handling various distribution brands and making money. And I must say that with the help of the entire team, we did a superb job. We took this turnover 7x in a span of about 5 years, and for 4 years running, we actually crossed the $1 billion mark for a company which is based and having its predominant business only in the UAE.
So let's go back to the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from Pune to Dubai?
I have always, whenever I have got this opportunity to speak, Akanksha, I've always said it with a lot of pride that I think my biggest strength has been that I come from a middle class background and an extremely ethical and spiritual background. This has helped me a lot. My family, my ancestors actually hail from that part of India which is now in Pakistan, and we moved sometime, I think my father was in the agricultural college in Pune in 1942, and so we have been there in Pune as our home base. I did my entire schooling, engineering and my MBA from Pune, and I started working in Mumbai. My first job was in the world's largest bearing manufacturer called SKF.
Oh.
And it was a short stint because I must confess here again that as an engineer MBA in those days and coming from a middle class background, I probably was in a hurry to get somewhere. I didn't know where that somewhere was,
Yeah.
but in a hurry to also make some money. So after SKF as a short stint, I got a break with HSBC. So I joined them as at the highest level as a resident officer trainee. I was with them for about 3 years. I got a brief stint in HSBC in Bangkok as well as in Hong Kong. And then I came back into their head office in Mumbai and was with them, but angling to get into two areas which were exciting for me in banking. One was card marketing and the other one was credit. And I was not able to get into either of them. And that was the time when Rajiv Gandhi had introduced computerization. And so I thought, why not move lines and get into this new field business, but on the hardware side of it, of the technology, not on the software side. So I got into a company called Pertec Computers, which was an offshoot of HCL those days, as a regional head for the Western region. And while I was working with them, I was picked up by Modi Xerox to handle half the country when I was just about, I think, 29 years old.
Wow.
So now I was based in Mumbai and then in Delhi. But this bug of wanting to get some international exposure and make some money made me scout around for an opportunity which came along in 1990 when I got a break with a large Indian group operating across all the 5 continents. And then I moved with them in Hong Kong and shifted with them from there into Dubai in 1992. So with Dubai as my base, I have now internationally worked with 4 large organizations or groups, Eros being the last one. And this has given me an opportunity to actually travel across and handle marketing and sales in this field of consumer electronics, appliances, and mobility products across 60 countries.
Wow. You mentioned how there was this bug of wanting to explore, wanting to learn. So when digitalization was at its nascent stage, how was the conversation then? Were people very open to adapt? Did they want to immediately adapt, or was there some sort of a hesitance before?
In my view, in the region where we sit, Akanksha, I think there was a serious reservation. It was not some hesitancy, but a lot of reservation. And I can understand why, because if you look at, you see that the history of this region, which is the GCC, is probably about 50 to 60 years old. And whatever has been made in this region has been made in this last 50 or 60 years. So actually it is across just one generation or maybe 1.5 generations. And that generation, when digitalization started, was already into their probably their late 50s or early 60s. So, and they had done well, most of them had done well for themselves. So they felt where is the need to move. My personal view is that the government of Dubai, and followed by, of course, the government of UAE and the other GCC countries, they have been at the forefront of driving this. So this is, and I repeat this everywhere that I get an opportunity to talk, that this is one place where the government actually is leap years ahead and the private sector is following. In every other part of the world, it's the other way around.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit on how the digitization of marketplaces transformed the traditional business models?
Okay, when the pace slowly started picking up, it was very obvious that there were 2 or 3 things which were giving some kind of instant benefit to organizations. The first and most important thing that was happening was the increase in the number of transactions which were happening, because once you get onto this path of digitalization, there is this opportunity available to actually try and shrink costs, even though everybody knows that the costs involved in the technology side are repetitive and sometimes quite expensive. But I think it was cutting costs in several other areas in terms of people management, in terms of space requirements. So the rapid scale up of transactions was very visible after a certain point in time. As I mentioned, the other thing was that we had this significant reduction in costs simply because you didn't need to do everything that was required to be done in a traditional distribution model. And then the third was, which is even working today beautifully, is that when the online is settled and doing well, there are a lot of products, categories, services which can be created as niche for selling online, and they do beautifully well, which traditionally are not possible to do in a typical distribution or service oriented model.
So you mentioned this as one of the benefits of what happens when digitalization
Yes.
happens. Are there any other key advantages that of digital marketplaces compared to the traditional ones?
Again, if one has to do a deep dive exercise, yes, there are some very major advantages. I think one of them is very visible, is that we are now almost done away with geographical boundaries. They just don't exist when it comes to online business.
Yeah.
But there are still companies and brands who give products, including in the categories we handle, they give products territory wise, and that becomes a bit of a challenge, but that is slowly likely to go away, because I feel what will happen is, as the online establishes and settles, there will be brands who will create maybe some categories which will be for global online sales, and therefore they will not allow those products to be sold through exclusive distributors.
Yeah.
And that will actually scale up the business even further. The other ease that one can see is that gaining buyers and sellers and a scale up across the world is possible, which was not possible in the earlier times. And once again, when the model is established for one to be able to actually spend incrementally more amounts of money and get a larger access to buyers and sellers is very visible. The investment costs, yes, in technology are there, and it is repetitive because with the rapid scale up and the obsolescence that happens in technology, you need to, keep investing. But I think the other costs, whether it's in space requirements, in requirement of, the number of people, in terms of, your last mile deliveries, etc., which are always outsourced to other players. For online players, this is a significant saving in costs. Yeah. And like I said, I think over time, since the online model works 24 by 7, you actually feel that you can save time. You look at anything today, you can buy it online at any point in time, yeah, day, night. That is not the case with the traditional model.
So from the business point of view, these are the key advantages that is there for
Yep.
them. For the from the user perspective, do you see as how beneficial is that for them, like digital marketplaces?
I think it has actually become probably more beneficial for an end user than it has been for a player who's in this business, because the availability of choices that you have, and of course the competition has actually spoiled the end customer, because they are now got used to the fact that you can buy, don't like it, return it back, which is on the portal side or on the player side, it is creating challenges. But for an end customer, he is thoroughly spoiled for choices. And now with the technology allowing you to search for something, and then the artificial intelligence kicking in and then telling you that, look, when what you search for, there are 50 other choices available. This is a big benefit for the end consumer. So you mentioned how the benefits that are presented to the end user can pose a challenge to these businesses. So are there any other challenges that you see for these digital marketplaces? I think if you look at the whole stack of organizations, or even including government setups across this region and probably across the world, Akanksha, again, this is my perception that the top 15 to 20% have actually got a lot of things right and are rolling. The bottom, the last 30% is going to take forever and a day to get it right. It's the in between 50 or 60% where there are still challenges, and those challenges that the top 15 or 20% faced, these guys are still facing. There is this lack of organizational change management strategy, which is still not in place in a lot of companies. If you are not very clear why you want to do digitalization, and then have some kind of a plan in place as to how you wish to go about it, you're always going to feel at some point in time it's not worth it, and therefore slow down. Lack of expertise is a very common area. If I may be allowed to explain that, people have this desire when they look at what's happening with the likes of an Amazon or a Known or a Flipkart, or they want to be somewhere in their desires like them. But when they wish to hire people, they somewhere end up, hiring somebody who they wish to fit into a salary bracket. And this is not how digitalization can work. You look for the expertise you want, and you get them on board at least closer to what their aspirations are. And if you wish to bind them into a longer term arrangement, you need to somewhere get them into being a part of the profit share. I think this region probably is still not ready. It will take some time. When you come to the continuous evolution of customer needs, when you have an online model and you start selling and you feel that from zero to certain level you have reached, the happiness index takes over, and then the desire to study the customer and tweak your model takes a back seat. Yeah. That's again something which I'm studying. Internal resistance to change is very heavy, because if you look around, then I can say, because I have been part of this industry for a long time, the traditional model and also now the new startups, the average age of people who are in this newer business is probably lesser than 35. And if you look around, there is still a lot of people who are, say, closer to my age. These guys are okay to discuss what should be done, but maybe internally don't wish that it should happen at the pace it should. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. Security concerns are growing. I think they are major concerns. Again, if I have to go a little deeper into this, I can explain it this way that with what's happening across the world, the instability index is growing. People are, how should I say it? They are educated, intelligent, but not able to get the right kind of jobs. And these guys, out of desperation, are wanting to do things in terms of committing fraud. And that is only going to increase and thereby putting pressure on firms to create better cybersecurity. Budget constraints are always a challenge, and there are many organizations where they are willing to spend money on many other things, and this becomes like spending as a last resort on this, which cannot help. And organizational change management, as I said, change cannot be only at getting a few people in to handle your online or digitalization. It has to be from top right to the bottom guide. And there is one area which is going to be a challenge even more in the future is how to invest in upskilling and recruitment. Because even if I am now ready for being kind of a mentor for these kind of, if I don't upskill myself, I'm also going to lose out.
Yeah. So all of these unique, steps that you said that can affect a business or can pose as a challenge to the businesses are. Do you see that there are some certain sectors that face their own unique challenges when it comes to adopting and absorbing and adapting to the digitalization?
So there are two categories, as I said. This is purely my view on the category one, where I feel that the middle layer, which is like the backbone of any economy, which is about, you can define it as 50%, 60%. It could be varying from country to country. These people are still not ready and need a lot of hand holding. So that's one. The other is there are sectors like, say, healthcare. The challenges to go digitalized and to see that data is safe and to see that it is actually available across doctors, professionals in that field, hospitals, is going to take some time. Uh, Probably it will take longer than what we expect. Critical infrastructure, getting it digitalized, because it's not something which is just kind of movement of boxes.
Yeah.
That is going to take time. It has its own challenges. And I still would say that there is one area where companies and organizations are using legal resources to cover themselves, but fraud management is going to be a big challenge, according to me.
Like, how has digitalization helped? Of course, you said that it has opened geographies. Now, people can trade from anywhere. Anything else that you see that has helped grow global commerce and trade?
The most important thing that has happened is that this digitalization, which has opened up and some of the players who actually started this exercise, they have invested a lot of money and got their marketing act and their thought processes right. And so this juggernaut of e-commerce happening, or by whatever terms you call it, the online business happening, is going to grow. Although the pace at which, again, my feeling is that the pace at which it will grow is going to start slowing down, because after the pandemic, one can see that a lot of people are going back into malls and stores to make decisions. But it's not only the e-commerce area which has been helped. I think areas like, if you look at the online platforms like the OTT or media, the change has been phenomenal and everyone has adapted to it. And therefore, this feeling is that if even the elderly are willing to adapt to this, why not to other areas as well? Why the resistance? Also, I think if you look at finance and technology products,
Yeah.
I think they have assimilated this new digitalization model very, very rapidly. So it's not just the e-commerce, but I think e-commerce has probably been, you can say, like the starting fuse, which has lit this fire, and now it's on the move.
Do you think that the pandemic was the catalyst required to push people towards digitalization and embracing, for businesses and the consumers? Do you think that acted as a catalyst for people to adopt it? faster?
Most certainly, it has helped to a large extent. It has helped certain economies, although there is always this debate whether the demonetization was the right thing or no. But it has helped a country like India also move and leapfrog into this space. And I think also what has helped is that since people were locked in for a long duration, whatever shopping they wanted to do, if they had no physical access to cash, they had to find ways. So the combination of all this has moved this process forward. Probably, I would say, if the 2 years of COVID were not there, we would be, maybe at 20% levels or 30% levels of where we are today. So that it has picked up 4 or 5x
Yeah.
at this time.
Earlier you mentioned how the leaders of Dubai and the Middle East have been at, they are at the forefront, and they are, visionaries in the sense of getting things moving ahead. Do you see any certain countries or sectors who are advancing at that similar pace?
So, if I have to mention the top countries which are at the cutting edge of this digitalization, I will not mention in order of merit, but what I can think of is countries like South Korea, Turkey, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, UK, now of course India, and yes, the US has always been. These are countries where people can actually study in depth and understand what they are doing right for them to move at this fast pace. I have, categorized people into 4 or 5 different categories. The young bloods, as I define them, are the 16 to 24-year-olds. The millennial powerhouse is the 25 to 34-year-old. The peak e-commerce engagers, which when you look at these countries, those who are actually at the peak of engaging on e-commerce are the 35 to 44-year-olds.
And I think I see that the categories that you mentioned, if you just look back at people in your household, I see how each of them fit so well. Like if I think of my family members, where my dad, he cannot live without his OTT, he needs his episodes. And then there is my niece, very, very comfortable with, the media, understands it far more better than all of us. And then there is my grandmother who's slowly understanding how OTT works. So she asks us instead, can you turn that on for me? So it makes perfect sense. And I see that, being applied to like a customer, and for businesses to then understand their customer and, skewer their strategy like that. How do you think businesses can stay agile and keep up with the digital trends?
So there are, a couple of points that I can talk about, Akanksha. I think the digital technology integration, it sounds like a big word, but I think from an organization or an online player or a digitally transformed company, right, going down right to the requirements or aspirations of their respective end consumer. And now it is happening even in the world of B2B, which we can see. If those are understood periodically, assessed periodically, tweaked periodically, uh, that in essence is what technology integration is all about. It's not like some big talk or a thesis one has to write on. It's that simple, but it requires that kind of investment of time and understanding. The other is, like I said, improving customer experience. Sometimes technology disadvantages are also that now when you want to, if you are doing, for example, online banking, or you are doing booking a ticket online, if you have a problem, you are actually talking to someone faceless. And if the problem is not resolved, the next time when you want to talk to, you're talking to another someone faceless. And this goes on. Some kind of a via media for these organizations to find out a better way to deal with these problems is required. Modernize the company culture, because you see, at the end of the day, you mentioned about your family and how you can see them grow. Culturally, if I am not willing to change, for example, I'm a trading house who says that 50 years or 60 years ago I started in some part of town, and I wish to remain in that part of town when everybody else, including my own families, have moved to another part of town to gain a better lifestyle. What makes me feel that I should remain and do business from there and get it right? So culturally, I have to change every aspect of my business to get the online or the digital model right. And then, obviously, the core business needs which are there. For instance, if I'm an organization in which is in the uh, business of providing service of a certain kind, I need to keep building my digital model around that till I decide that my core model needs to be tweaked to add something else, and then I need to build it around that.
Yeah.
So I need to be clear about these things, and actually, it's all about clarity. And finally, building business strategies based on a wider landscape. As I said, if it's all about now the world being a truly global village, how can I look at a customer who is sitting in the next lane and use that customer as a basis to decide my business model? I am in all probability like going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
So I need to understand that aspect.
So you mentioned the digital trends that businesses how they can keep up with that. But do you foresee any future trends that are upcoming and that businesses can stay aware of?
I have, made some points. The first one is voice command searching, and the ability to search in your own regional language is coming up in a big way. It's the future. It's going to happen. The second is inclusion of vertical marketplaces, which means that if you look at your own model, your own business model, you have decided instead of going uh, width, deciding to go depth.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be happening more frequently. I don't know finally where the balance will come, but this is the future. The rise of brick and click, which means that there was a time in the 2 years of the COVID with everybody felt that look, retail in brick and mortar is out. Please forget it. It's slowly coming back. And now the balance between looking at choices online, picking it up, or going and getting a feel of it somewhere, or vice versa, is what I think the mixed model is going to be more and more. Now, this is one area which is not touched upon by many. We talk about sustainability, we talk about a circular economy. In our industry, electronics, appliances, mobility, except for the small mama papa shops, nobody is looking at the business of re-commerce, refurbished products, and doing a good job at a global level, at an organization which is invested into the future. It's not happening. It's an open area. It requires a lot of work, effort, but I think the benefits of that are waiting to happen. Mobile shopping, of course, is getting more and more popular, and that's going to remain. And finally, we are coming to AI technology, which is actually going to ensure that people are able to get better choices, more educated choices.
So with AI, right now, since it's so nascent in the stage and people are still understanding it, do you think any sort of regulatory frameworks that are there that exist would impact digital marketplaces and these AI technology adaptations? And how can businesses navigate these challenges?
Yes, I think firstly this is can be equated to certain things which have happened in the past, Akanksha, and which the world is not willing to change. For example, half the world drives on one side of the road, the other half drives on the other side of the road, and they are not able to get together to say, look, why are we doing this? Why not everybody drive on one side of the road? So it's the same with the regulatory frameworks. Some countries want it in a certain way, some continents want it in another way. And with the world becoming a global village, organizations are facing challenges how to meet all those frameworks in one kind of a framework on which the company can work. So that is a challenge. Beyond the nature of innovation, the sheer pace of technology change itself is creating a challenge as to how to manage the regulation, which means the speed at which it is changing. Uh, those who are in governments today happen to be on my side. Of course, they are much older than me. I don't go by my gray hair, but they happen to be on my side of the age. For them to understand how to set uh, regulatory frameworks is in itself a challenge. They have to use expertise which is coming more from your age. So the two have to sit in sync together to be able to make it happen. So that is the starting point. The enforcement challenges across countries and borders. You can have a regulatory framework. I can have for India, one can have for this country, for any other country. When you are doing business across borders and you are a company registered in one place and doing across, how do you enforce those frameworks? What is the way to enforce? Is it that we are going to only make the legal profession richer by doing this? We don't know. So the future will tell us. Taxation challenges, because everywhere governments are not able to actually match up their budgets in terms of expenses and incomes. So the taxation is constantly on the rise. How do you manage this in a business without borders? Protectionist and inward looking thought processes, which means, I may say that I'm a large country. I don't wish to take some names. Let's say I'm a large country and I have a large population that the world has access to. So I'm not going to allow this. How do you make that change happen? Because you have challenges, and we can talk about, say, a country like China facing it. And again, I repeat this one point which I keep re-emphasizing is fraud management and how to manage that. It's a growing concern. It's going to be probably, I'm going to be writing about this technology trends for 2024 very soon. I think the first point on that my agenda would be, how does fraud management get handled? Not in terms of saying that legally I have filed a case, you wait, but how do I redress it to see that my issues become less?
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we close our episode for today, I have one last question. Is there any sort of technology or concept that you foresee in the future that would absolutely revolutionize digitalization?
I think this generative AI, which is coming up, is probably, according to, we talk about so many things like augmented reality, virtual reality. We talk about, other areas of technology revolutions which are happening, whether it's, yes, there is. So, according to me, generative AI, and I would say the other is digital logistics. Now, this is a term I use for the last mile delivery of products through digital means, as in robots, etc. These two will play a very, very significant role in the coming future.
That you are a member of the Society of Sustainability and Green Materials, UAE. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, it's interesting that this word sustainability and ESG has been talked about very frequently across the world, and obviously it's gaining momentum with what's happening for the climate issues across the world. UAE has been at the forefront, as I see it, of issues related to sustainability and climate change. You can see that COP28 is also happening, or is going to happen soon. And some time ago, I would say about a year and a half to 2 years ago, there is a gentleman who is now a very close personal friend, Dr. Ali Al Jassim, who is the chairperson of the Emirates Green Building Council. This gentleman had this idea to create a society of sustainability and green materials as the centerpiece of or a showcase, like Dubai does for everything else, of the sustainability area over the coming years. And I must say that he has enormous amounts of passion, the right kind of thinking, and therefore it's a matter of time. We probably may not be ready enough because it's taken a lot of time for the society to get formally formed. We may not be ready and do a lot of work for COP, but soon thereafter you will see a lot of activities happening on behalf of this society. And I would say all credit goes to this gentleman. So thank you so much for being a part of our show, and it was so insightful, and to see the entire journey through your lens and through your understanding, it was truly, truly beneficial, not only to us, but I'm sure to the viewers and our listeners as well. Thank you so much for being a part of our show. Thank you. I continue to remain a student of life for life, and therefore, there is no single day where I can say that I know it all, because that day something has changed and I therefore need to learn. Thank you so much for tuning into our episode of Trade of Thought. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.